All right, everyone, super excited to have you here. I'm going to be talking about a series of questions that have come in all around content cleaning. So before we get into that, you need to start by downloading my How to Clean Your Moldy Stuff guide because it's all based in that framework and those ideas. So go to cleanmymoldystuff.com, go download it. This cleaning guide has been a long time in the making. It was something I originally only shared with my inspection clients. And then over time, I started kind of writing it all down and putting it together, and then I turned it into a resource for you guys. This is such a common topic where there's questions and we just kind of don't know what we're supposed to do. And the reason we don't know what we're supposed to do is one, there's not a lot of great information, which this guide should hopefully help clean that part of it up. But the second thing is that we have such a relationship with our stuff. We have more of a relationship with our stuff than we actually do with our homes in a lot of times, right? A lot of times people can wrap their head around, I need to remediate my house, remove a couple walls, do whatever I need to do. But as soon as you talk about possibly getting rid of the chair that grandma left you, it becomes this whole other thing that now it's just so much more difficult, it's so much more real. Our emotions are tied to our things. It's not so much tied to the drywall that's getting replaced. And so that's why it gets really complicated. And everyone has so many questions about their stuff. So the first thing that I wanted to do in this guide is really kind of cover all the different types of things that can and can't be cleaned. And one thing that I say in here is that literally everything that you own falls into one of the categories that I've put in here. So there isn't anything that you have in your house that does not fall into one of these categories. So what you need to do is look at it, read through it, and decide which category does a particular item fall into, and then apply that to the recommendations and the cleaning processes and the thought processes around that type of item. Even my clients that I've shared this with, they'll go through this and they'll be like, well, what about this? What about this item? What about this item? What about this item? It always happens. I know it happens. I really write out how to identify and define and place all of these things in here. If an item is like multiple categories, which category you should default to, all of that stuff is included in this guide, and that's just one piece of the guide, okay? Overall, what you're gonna be getting in this thing is what can be cleaned, what can't be cleaned, where you should be cleaning stuff, what you should be using to clean stuff, and then examples of a bunch of different things. It's really every question that someone has around content cleaning is encompassed in this document that runs you through how to literally clean your stuff. Now, the one caveat on this stuff, guys, if you have visible mold growing on stuff, you don't want to clean it, all right? That's the big caveat on this. We're talking about things that are contaminated or cross-contaminated, I should say. They're in a home that has a mold problem, but there's not mold growing on it. When you're in Facebook groups and you're in all these different places, everyone just says, throw all your stuff out, burn it. There's nothing you can do. Well, the reason they say that is because they don't really know how. Or they reintroduce things in the wrong order. Or maybe the cleaning worked on 80% of their stuff, but 20% of it didn't. But they have no way to know which 20% of stuff it didn't work on. They started reacting, bam, they say throw everything out, you can't keep everything. So this talks through how you reintroduce things back into your house, the order that you do it, the timelines that you do it, how you categorize everything. It's all in here, okay? So again, go to cleanmymoldystuff.com, go get the guide, and then we're gonna run through a couple questions that are pretty common. So we're gonna go to page 5 on the guide. It's called the Content Cleaning Introduction. As I start talking about the different elements of the content cleaning equation, there's two elements to it. There's the content type, and then there's the value of the items. Now here's the thing. These are not black and white answers, okay? So somebody might be really mega sensitive, and somebody might be like somewhat sensitive, but not as bad. The person who's incredibly sensitive might need to be a little more aggressive and take an extra step and be a little more cautious in how they're treating things as opposed to somebody who might be a little less sensitive. Here's the other thing. Someone's health will change over time. It's not like a set standard, like I am this sick forever and therefore I cannot be exposed to this forever. That's not how it works. Over time, your body starts to get better. As you start to get healthier, you could start to be exposed to maybe some more things and not have as significant reactions. And as that goes, then your ability to be around something changes. This means that over time, there's a relationship between your health position at the time and what you can or can't be exposed to. At the beginning, you might not be tolerant to some things, and later on, you may be. So one thing to keep in mind through all this is even some of the items in certain categories that you're not sure of, you can actually take those and put them in a storage unit somewhere. work on you, work on your health, work on your healing, your detoxing, your drainage pathways, all of that stuff. Support your body. And when your body is able to start catching up and starting to hit equilibrium, then you might be able to reintroduce some of those key items that you were very hesitant to get rid of. And that kind of leads me into what we're talking about today. I had a few questions. It was around timing. How long something has been in a moldy space, and does that immediately mean, if it falls in a do not clean category, that you shouldn't be cleaning it? So in the guide, again on page 5, I start breaking down the categories. So the first type of category is do not clean. Okay, there are just things you shouldn't clean because they can't be cleaned. That's why it says do not clean, because they can't be cleaned. That's why. So first off, anything with visible mold growth, you just don't want to clean that stuff, right? You may technically be able to clean something on the surface, but like, you don't know if you're getting all the way. You don't know if it grew into the components of the item, and it's kind of hairy that way. So if you're listening to this and you're downloading this guide, you're probably somebody who's a little mold sensitive. And I would just say flat out, if there's something that has visible growth on it, we should just start preparing ourselves to get rid of those things. Now, the next thing is what I call a cushioned porous item, okay? So think cushion items, mattresses, pillows, couch cushions, puffy jackets, stuffed animals, carpets, things like that. These are the things I'm saying are impossible to clean. Spores, fragments, toxins, they get embedded in the cushions, and there's no way to get into the cushions to get them out. Think of your mattress. You lay on the top of your mattress, but your mattress has pores. You sit in it, it kind of opens up. You get up, it kind of closes back. And stuff can get into the pores, into the cushion. How do you clean the inside of a cushion? You can't. You can't vacuum the top of it. You can't wipe the top of it. You can't get into the cushion, okay? If you can't get in there, then there's no way that you can actually clean it, and that's why it falls into the category of do not clean. So that's a black and white interpretation of an item, right? Now keep in mind, as I'm writing this thing up, I can't talk about every individual scenario that happens. There's so many variables that go on. So I'm giving you a baseline of concepts to think from, and then you start applying those in your own way on how you are comfortable and what you're comfortable with doing. So the first part of the question is, if I have a cushion porous item that is classified as do not clean, well, what if it's my mattress and my mattress is not even a year old? Do I have to get rid of that, or do I not have to get rid of that? There's variables to this. First off, how sick are you? How reactive are you? If you're more reactive to things, then you're going to need to be a little more aggressive in the steps that you take. You need to keep that in mind. If you're someone that can walk in and immediately get mold hits when you walk in somewhere and start reacting, you're going to need to be way more aggressive than somebody who like walks in, they don't really feel stuff right away, but if they're there for a while, they start getting a little foggy or this or that. Like maybe that person can be exposed to a little bit more. Maybe their body's working a little more efficiently than the other person. So that's the first piece to keep in mind. Now the second thing, we have concepts of time as people, and it's years and years and years of history of our lives, of people history, human history, all this stuff, to where when we get all the way to the point where we say, I've had a mattress for about a year, we think that's no time. Because in the grand scheme of our lives, it's not a whole lot of time. It doesn't seem very long. But think of it this way, you have a mattress in a house. So here's now the next variable. How bad is your house? Variable 1, how reactive are you? Variable 2, how messed up is your house? How moldy is your house? How contaminated is your house? Is it just mold, or is it mycotoxins also? Is there bacterial toxins in the house? Like, what is the totality of all the crap that's floating around the house that 1, you're being exposed to, and 2, is settling on your stuff? So let's say you did an ERMI, or let's say you ran the dust test. And let's say you did the dust test and it came up and you were in code 4 or code 5. So if you're an ERMI group, let's say you're in group 4 or group 5. Well, those are not very good. Group 5 is really not good. Group 4 or code 4 is definitely not very good. So if you're in a house that's tipping on the higher end of the overall mold load, you have more stuff floating around. That means more stuff that could settle down on your mattresses, on your couches, on all these things. More stuff that could get into all the pores and the cushions. More exposure, even if it's a shorter period of time. Now the other thing, a year doesn't seem like a long time, but just think of how long a year actually is. Think about how often you clean your house. Do you clean your house every month? Do you clean it every couple weeks? Do you clean it every 3 months? Whatever it is, think about how often you clean your house. And then think about the areas that you don't clean all the time, but then you kind of get to them like the 3rd or 4th time, and there's so much dust buildup there that's settled down in the corner, on the baseboards, in different areas. So You have to think about that and think about that happening everywhere in your house and all of that settling on your stuff, right? The buildup that you see after several months is only because it's been happening over and over and over and you haven't removed any of it. But with a mattress or a cushion, all of that stuff is getting sucked into the pores in the cushions, right? So that makes it a little more challenging. A year is a really long time. Now, it's not as long as 20 years, sure, but it's a long time. Now, if you told me like, hey, I just brought this thing into the house last week, you know, that might be a little different. But like, I've had this in the house for a year. You're sleeping on it every night. You're opening the pores of the bed every night. You're then closing them when you get off the bed every night. It's more than you think. Does that mean you have to get rid of it? I'm not going to tell you to get rid of stuff or not get rid of your stuff. All right. That's not what I'm going to do. That's why I made this guide. I want to give you information and thought processes and frameworks to think through to make the decisions for yourself. So think it through. How reactive are you? How bad is your house in the first place? And how long have you had the item? If you think of those three things and put them together, you have an equation that makes sense, right? I'm not very reactive, that number goes down. My house isn't that bad, that number goes down. Can I keep something that maybe has been here for a year? Maybe. You have a higher likelihood of being able to deal with that. If your reaction levels aren't low and your house isn't that bad, flip it around. I walk into a house and within 3 seconds, I flare up. Whatever your flare is it pain, is it brain fog, is it skin breakouts, whatever your flare is. Happens in 3 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It's a very fast, high reaction time. How bad is the house? I did a ERMI, it fell into group 4. I did the dust test, it fell into group 5. All right, that place is pretty bad. Put those two together and say I've had something in here a year, I would lean way more on the other side of, you might want to think about getting rid of this. Then add in the part of, well, do you have mycotoxins in the house? Do you have bacterial toxins in the house? If you do, those are now biotoxins that are also floating around. And those are getting into the cushions. And then I would lean even more towards discarding something like that. But here's the thing. At the end of the day, it's not about what I think. It's not about frameworks that I'm giving you. It's not about any of that stuff. The only reason that you're listening to me right now, and the only reason that you're reading this guide that you downloaded, right? You downloaded it, right? Good. If you didn't, cleanmymoldystuff.com, go get it. The only reason you're looking at it is because mold is impacting your health. That's the only reason you're doing any of this stuff. So you have to look at it at that lens, and then you have to take a step back and you have to say, is this thing here that I'm looking at more valuable in the long term than my health is? And I know that's such a black and white way to look at it. And the first feedback I'm gonna get is, I don't have the money to replace everything in my house, so I can't just look at it like that. And I get that, but you have to start there and just start defining things like that. Then once you've gone through all the things that in your mind you can't really get rid of for finance reasons, then you look at all of them. You look at your finances and you understand what your budget is and what you can and can't replace, not from an individual item perspective, but from a totality perspective. What is the total budget that I have available to replace or not replace things? Figure that out, and then go down the items that are there and compare them to what category they fall in. Do they fall in do not clean, or do they fall in the items that can be cleaned or that you shouldn't clean or you should clean? And go through the guide and you see all that stuff. Then what you want to do is you want to start at the item that is the most difficult to clean and you want to get rid of that one, okay? And then you come down and you figure out where your budget is, where your break even is, and that's where you stop, right? Then it's not about one item anymore. It's not about this mattress. That's not what it's about. It's about, here's everything I have in my house. Here is if we're gonna move and do all of these things and remediate and clean, here's the money I have towards replacing items. And now let's start at the items that we know are the hardest to clean, and let's start applying those dollars there and work our way down. If you do it that way, you're getting the biggest bang for your buck, not necessarily in the most items that you're cleaning, but the items that are gonna be most problematic for you when you come back in the house, those are the ones that you're targeting and getting rid of. That's how I would go through it. It's so much more than the question of, how do I know if I need to replace my mattress, which is the question sitting in front of me right now. And so that's kind of how you have to think through everything. Let me do another one. I just replaced my winter coat 2 weeks ago. Do I need to replace that as it falls in the do not clean category? Why does it fall in there? Because it's a puffy coat. So anything puffy falls into that. Now we're talking 2 weeks, okay? How reactive are you? How bad is the space? How long has it been in there? Put those together. Even if you're very reactive, but the timing is really low, there might not be as much time for it to get heavily contaminated potentially. Also, the coat is not the same as a cushion. You're not sitting on it constantly and opening the pores and shutting the pores. It's probably hanging in your closet. It might not be as embedded in a coat as it would be in a bed, in a mattress, in a couch cushion, something like that. So try to think through it that way. So for a winter coat that's been in a place for a couple weeks, again, how bad is the place? Is it something that was really bad, or is the place kind of bad? Is your reactivity level high or low? But I would say that's one of those things where probably go get it dry cleaned, see if that kind of knocks anything out of it. And then after that, you could put the coat on. Are you somebody who's reactive that's going to notice right away if something's going to trigger you? Some people are. So if that's the case, don't ask the question, go do a little experiment. Have your coat dry cleaned, put it on, walk around for a half hour. How do you feel? Do you notice the reactions? Do you not notice the reactions? If you do, you've answered your own question. Now, if you're somebody who takes a little longer, it might not be that easy, but you just need to be cognizant of your body and how it's feeling when you do wear it for a longer period of time. So wear it out for the night, for the day. See how you feel the next day. See how you feel that night, whatever it might be, and maybe make the decision that way. But I would be way less inclined to tell a client, you've had a winter coat for 2 weeks, you have to get rid of it, as opposed to I've had a mattress for a year. Like, those are two different things. Mattresses are horizontal. Particle's gonna settle on it naturally. Then you sit on the mattress or lay on it, it opens up the pores, it gets in there. Jackets lie vertical, so you're not getting as much natural settlement on it. You're not sitting in it and opening the pores as much. There's just variation in the type of item and what it is. I hope that helps answer some of these questions. These are two specific items, but more so this framework of how reactive are you, how bad is the house, and how long has the item been in the house. If you could think of it in those three ways, then after you do that, then think through of all your items together in totality, and you have a budget for replacing items and cleaning items, and then go through them and say, okay, these are the things that technically I would be replacing if I was following the guide. These items up at the top are the ones that are in the do not clean category. Let's say there's 2 up there, and then let's say there's 5 items that, you know, technically can be cleaned, but they're not ideal to be cleaned. You say, okay, I have X amount of dollars. I can withstand replacing 1 of the 2 items or 2 of the 2 items in the do not clean category. And then everything else, I'm not gonna replace them because I can't afford it. So then you go more towards the cleaning side and try to clean those. But the things that you've replaced are the things that are the most difficult to clean, and the things that are gonna be hanging on to the most contamination for the longest period of time. You'll, in theory, get the biggest impact on doing it that way. So that is what I got for you today. Remember, go get this guide. I put a lot of time into building this thing. It's what I've been sharing with my clients for years and years and years. Literally thousands of people have downloaded this thing in less than a month. It is the most popular thing that I've ever created, and it makes sense because of what I talked about at the top. So come get it. It's there. It's for you. I wanted to help you guys. And yeah, that's it. So I'll talk to you guys next time.